I'm Sarah, and in this video I'm going to talk about things relating to the Spanish Inquisition. So, let's start with the video. The Tribunal of the Holy Office was founded in 1478 by the Catholic monarchs, Isabel and Fernando, in order to maintain their religious unity and later to fight against heresy or sacrilege. It lasted for 350 years and ended in the 19th century, but I will talk about it later. As we don't usually know, it first appeared in France, Albi, due to the Catholic culture, which had influences of the Manichaeism, which believed in the two-faced forces of Jesus and Satan, goodness and evil. This was considered an heretic behavior, so in 1184, a medieval Inquisition was approved by a papal bull by the Pope Lucio III. In Spain, the Catholic influence was growing very fast, and the kings asked the French crown for help. Because of this, in 1209, the Albigensian Crusade took place, trying to erase the Catholicism from the peninsula. But it failed. Why? Well, you were thinking. Well, it was controlled by local bishops instead of being coordinated by a major personality. Because of this, some years later, in 1231, the Pope Gregory IX created the Pontifical Inquisition. It mostly acted in the Crown of Aragon, the south of France, and the north of Italy. According to all this, why do we relate it to Spain? Well, I'll answer that question in the next minutes. I had divided it into steps. In the first step, we can find the anti-Jewish violence caused by jealousy, which was triggered because the Jewish people got to still have food and money, while the rest of the people were dying from hunger and diseases. These situations were driven into severe massacres, killing many people. Some of the worst of them were in Barcelona, Valencia, Toledo, Córdoba, and Sevilla. In the next step, the Jewish people were forced to convert to Christianity, but the old Christians didn't trust them. And that takes us to the third and last step of the creation of the Tribunal of the Holy Office, the Inquisition. When in 1478 it was established in Castilla with the Bulla Exigit Sincerae Devotionis Affectus, which means Bulla requires the sincere devotion. The Inquisition worked through auto da fe. These were public acts in where the condemned people told their crimes and were given to the secular arm to execute the sentence in another place in the evening or at night without so many ceremonies, exaggerated stuff, and without authorities. The auto da fe finished being popular shows to entertain people, like bullfights and other festivities. As it was increasing its power, a new rank was created. The General Inquisitor had the objective of coordinating all the acts of the Inquisition. The first Inquisitor was proclaimed in 1483, and he was Fray Tomás de Torquemada. Though the Pope was the one who had to choose him, the monarchs were the ones to present him to the Pope. So they had a lot of power over the General Inquisitor and the whole Inquisition, and they could use it as a political instrument. 9 years later, in 1492, the Jews who did not convert were forced to leave the peninsula. That supposed the loss of more than 50,000 inhabitants. The converted people who did not leave the peninsula were known as marranos, or pigs, and were thought to practice secretly their first religion. The church took measures to stop it. In the start, they gave 30 or 40 days, this was called the grace period, to report non-Christian behaviors and to pay a fine for them. Some of the converts who hadn't even sinned paid the fine because they were afraid of what they could suffer if they didn't. Of course, all the money went to the monarchy. Then came the persecutions of the people who hadn't paid, and they were punished according to rumors and fake stories. In Spain, less than the 2% of the condemned people died in the bonfire. The second period remains to the first half of the 16th century. In 1517, the church was divided due to the Protestant reform. As he was an advocate of the Catholic Christianity, Carlos I of Spain was proclaimed emperor. Here is where I tell you why the people unite the Inquisition directly with Spain and many horrible facts. Well, the Protestants used Gutenberg's printer to share the propaganda against the other parts. It was the Guillermo de Oranges of propaganda which caused that bad fame about the Spanish Inquisition and tortures and the inhuman atrocities. The third period took place in the second half of the 16th century. In order to get religious uniformity, the persecutions of the Protestants and Moriscos started. It was in 1609 when the expulsion of the Moriscos happened. The last but not least period was more relaxing, to say it somehow. The Count Duke of Olivares was not favorable to the Inquisition, and he refused to execute people for stupid reasons or women because they were witches. That was a bit barefaced, but after the death of the Count Duke in 1643, the other leaders came back to do whatever they wanted, causing more executions and punishments. The decadence of the Inquisition arrived in the 18th century, when it started to not have such a good impression, and the people suggested a change. In 1808, Napoleon abolished the Inquisitorial Tribunal, and the Cortes de Cádiz joined him in 1812. Then there was an intermittent state during the reign of Fernando VII and the fight between liberals and absolutists. It finally finished in 1834 with a royal decree by Maria Cristina, the mother of Isabel, during her regency.